Welcome to the Naked Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs. This show is about how each of us can make a positive impact and contribute to the greater good. By hearing stories of courageous women leaders across various sectors and industries, my hope is that you too will cultivate the courage you need to make the impact you desire. Naked Conversations are about contribution, leadership, relationships, communication, privilege, equity, purpose, and above all, hope. This is the place to explore how you want to live, love, and lead. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Naked Conversations. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs. As always, thank you so much for listening. I hope you get the inspiration, the clarity, the motivation, the laughter, or the cry that you came here for. Even if you're not even sure what drew you to this show today, there's something in it for you. I have a really great guest on the show today. I always have great guests on the show. I really love this person. She's become a dear friend of mine, and I am just honored to share her story with you and the work that she's doing in the world. Before I introduce you to Natasha, I want to make sure that you know what's going on over at sagebehobbs.com and how you can find more episodes, make sure you don't miss out on any of the things that we have going on in the Naked Conversations world. And if you want to check out any of the resources we mentioned in today's episode, you just do that over at sagebehobbs.com. While you are over there, you can poke around, listen to other shows, read some blog posts, get a free guide around how to ask powerfully for what you want in the world, something that most women need some support around. And when you sign up for that free guide, you also get insider emails from me with stories and tips and inspiration, whatever I'm using on things I'm reading. And you never miss a podcast episode that way. Also, it is almost the end of 2018. Well, I guess it depends how you calculate time. For me, we're in the last few months here at the time of this recording of 2018. And I have opened up a few spots in my one-on-one customized coaching through the end of this year. And not sure what's going to be coming forth in 2019, but for now, I have a few spots open that I really want to deep dive with some women who are interested in transforming their relationships, doing meaningful work in the world, and having both of those things work beautifully together. So if you are someone who has been managing a lot of moving parts in your life, and you want to have that flow with more ease, more joy, more pleasure, more impact, then you might want to reach out to me about coaching. I work with people who are really up to something in their lives, or they want to be, but they're feeling overwhelmed or exhausted or spread too thin, or they don't know where to begin. Yet they know that there's like this part of them that is here to really make an impact and to really serve in a bigger way. And they want to have that not compromise their personal relationships. That tends to be the people I love to serve. Like, you want to have a partnership or a marriage that is thriving and intimate and deep, even if it's not right now. And you want to make your work valuable and meaningful during your time on this planet, and you're not sure what the next step is. And you don't want to compromise your children in the meantime. That balance, and I hate the word balance, but that sweet spot of meaningful work and working relationships that are lovely and beautiful, that's who I work with. So you can find out about that at sagebehobbs.com or send me a direct message on Instagram and we will find a time to talk. So, Natasha. Today I have Natasha Wright on the show with us. And Natasha is, at first glance, somebody that I think I would be intimidated by because she has done so many extraordinary things in her life and seems to be, quote, doing it all. But when you talk to her, you also realize she is so human and so real, so generous, so kind-hearted, and really, really up to being of service in the world and having relationships be at the forefront of her values and what matters to her, exactly like what I was talking about before in terms of who I serve. So Natasha is the founder and executive director of Chai for Charity, a nonprofit that connects private donors to charities working to help women thrive locally. And I love this part. I've attended some of her events. It has a local impact focus, which I really appreciate, knowing what's going on inside of the community in which I live. She also manages executive development programs at Google, where she arms Google's senior leaders with the tools to navigate ambiguity and confidently lead their teams through complex challenges. She's really in people development at Google at a very high level, though she will downplay that. And something she's really proud of is that she leads Colorado's division of women at Google, which is an effort to offer support and development opportunities and facilitate connections between the women of the Google organization. So she's been with Google for 12 years. And previously, she had worked in the nonprofit sector around affordable housing in Los Angeles. She earned a sociology and urban planning degree from UCLA. And she has 3 kids, 3 little boys who are 7, 4, and 1, while doing all of those other pieces. So we get real with that today. Like, what does it take to juggle a full-time professional gig with a nonprofit passion, with 3 children and a husband? What does that mean inside of her own psychology? How does she manage her own belief system and move herself forward? What does that mean externally in terms of how she gets support to manage the various moving parts of her life? We talk about her family's history and how it impacted who she is today, an immigrant story, and really who her parents are and the courage that they had and the deep amount of generosity that they demonstrated has led her to where she is now. We talk about engaging our communities all over the world and how we want people to feel included and connected and like they are clear on the contribution they can make. And we talk about that struggle with perfectionism and doing it right and how that can really thwart us on our path, as well as much, much more. So be sure to listen to this from your own lens, what you need today, what inspiration you're seeking, how you can lean into being more of yourself, what is your edge. And it's not going to look necessarily exactly like Natasha's. That's fine. She's just another woman sharing her story about what it means to really show up and live a naked life and make a difference along the way. So I invite you to enjoy this conversation with Natasha, and I look forward to hearing what you think about it. Let's do this. Hi, Natasha. Thank you so much for being here on the show.
Hi, Sage. Thanks for having me.
Yay. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I feel like we were meant to meet and become friends. So it just feels full circle to have you share your story and your work here on Naked Conversations. I just love how we met, actually. I'm just going to tell people because you reminded me the other day and I hadn't quite remembered. We met in the elevator, which sounds like more...
A little creepy.
I know. It sounds a little weirder than it was, people, I swear. But we were at this awesome personal growth development conference around women's leadership and speaking up called Emerging Women Live. I think it was the fall of 2017, right?
Yeah.
And we were both kind of frantically coming into the morning's events from the parking garage and the parking lot. Right?
Yes. Yeah, it was. It was the first day. And well, I felt like I was late and maybe you felt like you were late too. And I don't drive to Denver that often. And I felt like I was lost in the parking lot and it didn't feel like I was in the right place because there weren't enough people and there were no signs. And then I found you.
And then you found me. And we were like, hi, blah, 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 blah. I feel like we were immediately drawn to each other. And then, I don't know, a few hours later, we ended up sitting right next to each other in a room full of hundreds of people and doing some activity or exercise together where we kind of deep dove into our lives briefly, but very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And my experience of it was, I don't know what your experience of it was, but my experience was like, I like this woman, like recruiting her as a friend.
My experience was identical. And actually, there's more to it because later when we finally did connect, or maybe it was at the event on day 2 or something, you said something like, I'm not really in the market for new friends, but I'm going to make an exception for you. And I felt so special. I don't know if you remember saying that, but I remember it vividly because I was like, dude, I just made it in. I made it in. Oh my gosh.
I feel like that sounds totally obnoxious of me, but there's some real truth in it. So I'm sure I said it because I
was like, she's going to be my best friend. And I think we went to like best friend status really quickly.
Yeah, totally. It was like Insta friends. Absolutely. Yeah. And it was a high compliment because the truth is I like value my friendships and my relationships super deeply. And I also know what it takes to keep them and cultivate them when you're like raising a family and working and having a partnership. So I actually don't take new friendship lightly. So I guess I did mean it, but wow, it does sound a little bit snobbish, doesn't it?
I did not find it to be snobbish at all.
Okay, good. Whoosh.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to kick it off with a question I start with everyone. And it's just to set the context because Naked Conversations and the book Naked Communication is really about how do we show up, live our lives from an authentic place that's honest and real and true and use our voice to make a difference in the world, make an impact while like doing meaningful work and igniting what we're here to do with having great relationships, all of that bundled up together. And what I have found in order to live that kind of life is that it takes courage. So This is episode, gosh, I don't know, we're in the 40s now, which I can't believe. After having many conversations with people on the show, what I really am clear on is this idea of courage is sort of different for everyone, but it's required for the kind of life that the women I bring on lead. So I ask you, what does courage mean to you?
Courage means doing something that really scares you, like getting through it.
Yeah.
I wish I had a better answer, but it's doing something that really scares you and doing it anyway.
You're going to get the chance to tell us about something you did that was, pretty courageous for you and what came up for you and what scared you along the way. So maybe that'll help like elucidate what you mean by being scared and doing it anyway. I think you said something though that's really key, which is to move through it. I often will say to people, like, you're stronger than you think you are and you can survive hard things. And it's sort of a mantra in some ways for my clients and for myself, but we forget that we're really capable, that we have capacity to make it through things that scare the shit out of us or that are really hard that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life throwing
our way. And I think
way.
in my case, a lot of it has to do with my own personal demons, to be honest. And I think that this will come out during our interview. But for me, courage is actually overcoming my own demons, my own doubts, and my own tendency to question the things that feel scary.
Yes. It's an internal battle.
Exactly. For me, it's really been an internal battle. And so courage is overcoming all of those things because I have a really supportive family and network and resources. And so it takes a lot of courage for me to actually just get over myself.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I really relate to that. Okay. So with that, that's perfect. See, look, you came to the perfect definition for you. Courage for me is to get over myself.
Yes. That's what
awesome.
Courage.
Yeah. And I think a lot of women who are listening and some men would really appreciate that. Let's get into that a little bit more as we learn about what you do. So you do many things, Natasha. What is it that you do for a living? Like, tell people a bit about your story, the thing where you get paid, and then also the passion project.
Absolutely. So I work at Google. I have been at Google for 12 years. I'm in executive development. I manage programs to help our leaders, our vice presidents and directors, navigate through really complex leadership challenges to build some awareness around what leadership actually means and how they'd like to evolve as a leader, both at Google and outside. So my day job is global program manager for executive onboarding. That's what my day job is.
I just have to say that I love that you stumbled over that because that's perfectly pointing to that whole like internal conversation. And Natasha and I have talked about this before. Natasha really, like so many super accomplished women, downplays what she does in a lot of ways. And I'm just going to say this because I know this to be true of you. You are the global director of executive onboarding for Google.
Global program manager of executive onboarding for Google. Yes. So I'm not a director at Google.
Okay. But you're program managing how people become executives and how they lead inside of the Google organization.
Correct. That's what I do. And then I also founded and currently lead the Women at Google effort, which is
so cool.
Yeah, it is so cool. I'm really proud of that, actually. It's the employee resource group. So I lead the Colorado division of Women at Google. And the goals are to offer development opportunities, build a network, and also engage with the community. So essentially, we're building a space to help women thrive at Google. So that's the Women at Google effort. And then lastly, or more recently is the best way to describe it, I founded a nonprofit called Chai for Charity.
Awesome. Okay. So you've been working at Google for 12 years. When I first met you, I think you said, I'm like in people development, which I loved that title. I was like, I'm in people development too. And I've never thought of it that way before. But like you help the leaders be more human and more authentic and connect with their staff and lead effectively in their roles at Google. And then you were like, there's space for women to have more voice, to come together and support each other, to thrive and grow inside of the organization. And so you launched and facilitate the Colorado effort for women at Google, which I also love and can't wait to partner with you more on that. And then in your spare time, you decided that there was this thing that was also wanting to be born from you, which is this Chai for Charity nonprofit organization. And I want to talk about that in a couple of ways. I want to hear more about what Chai for Charity is and how it came to be, but I also want to hear about that kind of calling inside of you that felt like there was something else you wanted to do beyond raising 3 children, which we haven't gotten to yet, and having a pretty big role at a pretty big company. So what was that sort of initial, like, you know, I always think of it as kind of like a little fire in my belly. Like, what was that initial pull or draw that had you move towards creating Chai for Charity?
Yeah. The story of Chai for Charity actually started 7 years ago. So 7 years ago, I was living in California, and that's when the burn in my belly started.
Yeah. The burn.
The burn. That's when it started. And, I really felt like there was just more that I could do to help gather a community of people together to learn about great things that are happening. And so I started Chai for Charity 7 years ago in 6 locations across North America. And we all ran a Chai for Charity at the same time and raised $6,000 for survivors of domestic violence. Same time, same day. So it was kind of like this electric movement. And 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant with my first son. And I've been pregnant every year since, essentially. And so I'd hoped to create something amazing with Chai for Charity, but I had to put it on hold until this year. A couple of months ago, I decided that I was going to really invest in building the best Chai for Charity that I could. And that's when I kind of breathed new energy into Chai for Charity. And did I answer your question, Sage?
Okay. Yeah, we're getting there. So the burning in the belly.
Burning in the belly. Yes,
maybe it didn't feel like a burning in the belly. But you said something like, there's more that I can do.
Yes.
To shine a light on good work that's happening. So I just think that's fascinating. And I want you to explain a little bit more about what the model is for Chai for Charity, because I participated in your most recent event.
Yeah.
And I want you to explain a little further, like what was calling you to shine a light on there's good stuff happening here, and how did you choose survivors?
Yeah, good stuff happening here. So there's so many amazing nonprofits doing amazing work in the area that I didn't feel like they were getting the kind of exposure that they could. And that my community certainly didn't have the awareness to understand what was happening, what efforts were taking place to help women thrive.
You had one thought, which is there's such good stuff happening you were in the Bay Area in California.
Yes. Yep.
You're like, there are people doing good work to try and make a difference in our community. Like there's good stuff happening. And then your second thought was, my people don't know about it.
Yes.
Like these women that I'm spending time with or socializing with or in community with, like don't know that all of this need is out there and all of these people who are trying to meet the need are out there. There was an opportunity for you to make a bridge.
Yes. And then the third thing I would add to that is that I also noticed that when we think about donations or giving, we think about it in a specific way. We always default to giving money or giving time. And I think that there is a way to expand the definition of giving. And so Chai for Charity does that for both the donors and for the nonprofit. So there are 3 things that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to build awareness, we're trying to gather a community of givers, and we're trying to diversify the way that people donate.
Okay, so how are you diversifying the way that people donate besides beyond money?
Beyond money. So when you participate in a Chai for Charity, we actually have folks donate in 4 categories. So money is kind of the cost of entrance. So there's a minimum donation in order to attend a Chai for Charity. So money, check. And
check.
the other 3 categories, and the other 3 categories are goods, time, and talent. So when I was thinking about how to expand the definition for giving, I actually wanted to create a space for women of all generations, of all socioeconomic backgrounds, of different professions, etc. I wanted them all to feel like this was a place that they could contribute. So when I expanded the definition, I specifically went into categories where I thought that people of different generations, different socioeconomic backgrounds could contribute. So someone who has money may not have time. Someone who has time may not have money. Someone who has goods may not have money or time. And so that's how I built those categories. So goods are things that you deliver to a nonprofit, and the nonprofits kind of give us a wish list. Time is, I don't want to say unskilled work, but not super skilled work. So gardening, for instance, would be time, or snow shoveling, or
cooking a meal,
correct, or administrative work. And then talent would be things like social media marketing strategy, or accounting, or legal services, or
fundraising consultation.
Exactly. So those are the 4 categories.
I love that. Another thing that I thought was cool about Chai for Charity is that you brought it down to a local level. Like there was sort of a grassrootsy kind of feel to it, in the sense of having attended your event in the Boulder, Colorado area, that you sought out organizations that are right here in our community, so that the women who were coming as givers were meeting people who were giving back here.
Yes, that's really important to me too. It's important to me that folks who attend the event feel like they can see and touch and feel the change that these nonprofits are making in our community.
Got it. So you really wanted to keep it local.
Yeah, I did.
Why Chai for Charity? People are probably like, what are you talking about? Chai for Charity.
So I'm Pakistani, born in Pakistan. Our family immigrated to America when I was 8 years old. And chai actually is just the Pakistan, so the language is Urdu, is the Urdu word for tea. So it's not necessarily the type of chai that you purchase at a coffee shop today, which has all of the spices to it. Chai is actually just tea. the word tea. And my family has grown up drinking tea. So some of my earliest memories are of my grandparents sitting down to have a cup of chai in the morning or a cup of chai in the afternoon. They still do that today. So it's just kind of this gathering of people to have a really intimate conversation about things that matter to them. And it felt so rhythmic in my childhood that it kind of formed the person that I am today. And even today, when I need to be comforted, or if I've had a particularly bad day or even a good day, actually, like I run to chai. So I have a version of chai that I have that brings me a ton of comfort. And it was important to me to bring a really significant piece of myself into the nonprofit that I was creating. And chai is this kind of comfort. It's a time of gathering. It's a time for creating an intimate space to build community. It's a way to make friends. You kind of share chai to make a friend. You invite them into your family.
That is so beautiful. And I actually did not know that.
That chai is the word for tea.
I didn't know chai was the Urdu word for tea. And I definitely didn't know that that was really why you came up with, like, the deep, soulful reason really about why you came up with that title for the NGO. Like, there's so much more to that. This idea that I just love it, because it's funny too, because tea is a ritual for me for sure. I have tea pretty much all year round. In the winter, it's always a hot cup of tea in the morning. And for me, it's kind of a grounding practice. Like, I drop my kids off at school. I come back, I make a hot cup of tea, and that's how I start my day. Like, I sit with it for a few moments. I love the way it feels between my hands, you know, the warmingness factor of it. In the winter, my husband and I will often drink sleepy time in the evening after we put the kids to bed. It's kind of our ritual to relax ourselves, healthier than wine. And so, and then in the summer, we are here in Colorado, there's Celestial Seasonings, and it's a super fun place to take a free tour, by the way. And it's, you know, started with some hippies gathering herbs in the hills right here in this area. It has a great story and it's socially responsible. And so my kids got really into it. And so we let them choose like exotic flavors from the factory itself, you know, like lime, watermelon or something. And then we'll make huge pitchers of iced tea, and we put fresh mint in from the garden. And it's kind of like this fun, sometimes they put, you know, seltzer and they make it a spritzer. For me, there's this way in which tea is also very calming for me. I found it to be something that really calms my nervous system.
And one last thing actually is that tea has been this kind of constant for me in my life and my history. And now it's become a ritual for my children and my father. So my dad's actually coming tomorrow, and I have to stock the house with the tea and the biscuits and the other kind of things that my sons and my father collect for their morning tea time ritual. And it's every morning, and my dad will wake up early just to make the tea before my kids wake up. And then the table will be set for tea time with grandpa.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
My next 4 days are going to be tea time with grandpa.
And how old are your kids?
7, 4, and 1.
7, 4, and 1. And they participate with tea time with grandpa.
They participate in tea time with grandpa, and they participate in chai for charity.
Talk to me about that a bit. So I want to hear about 2 questions, I guess, that came up for me. Are there other ways that, having come from Pakistan at age 8, which is old enough to remember, your oldest son is 7, right? Like, think all the life he's lived so far. I think about that myself sometimes with my kids. When I had moved before 4th grade, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had a whole life. No wonder I was upset to move before 4th grade. You know, are there other ways that you can see, having come over from Pakistan, having influenced the decisions you made in your career and in your pursuit of giving back?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a couple of things. So coming to America from Pakistan for my family was, like most immigrant families, a decision based in making sure that their children had a better life. And so I am so proud of my parents for having the courage to do it. My grandparents before them for also having the courage to do it. So all of my decisions have been kind of in service of growing to be the best person that I can be with the resources that are available to me here, right? So I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I'm the first person in my family to get a corporate job and to stick with it. I'm certainly the first person in technology. I'm the first person to create anything like a nonprofit, like anything that is for myself, that brings joy into the world and creates a space for goodness to flourish, I guess.
Say more about that. You're the first person in your family to have it be okay but there was something there about to create something that's for yourself or for giving back.
Yeah. Honestly, it's because we didn't have the resources to do it before. So I think that my parents are totally capable and would be very excited to do something like this. I mean, definitely. They're so generous and so kind, and so welcoming. And I learned all of that from them.
Yes.
And the fact that I've been able to do a thing that can actually support a community, I think brings them a lot of pride. In fact, I'm sure it does. And I'm going to try not to cry when telling you that.
Oh,
so I'm going to stop there.
I know it does too, because I talked to your mom when I met her. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Sage.
Yeah. So there was a sense of you finally had financial stability enough to then be able to create something that was sole purpose, was heart and contribution.
Yes.
Yeah, I really got that. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because obviously stories of immigrants are so skewed in the media.
Yeah.
And I really believe that all of us, like, our families shape our identity. Our story shapes who we are, the decisions we make, why we get the jobs we get. I mean, I had a friend in college who was raised by a single mom who struggled very much financially. And when I went to a prestigious university and when everybody was getting ready to graduate, it was like, what are you going to do for work? What's your next move? And he taught me a huge lesson. I'm about to tell one on myself about my own naivete. And he said, well, I'm going to take the job that pays me the most money. Yeah. And I said, well, what about like a job that you like or gives you some joy? And he said, I came here to this school to get an education so I could go make a living that would support my mom and support my family. And then I will find a job that brings me happiness and joy. But first, I will buy my mom her own house.
Yes.
And I was like, boom, it's beautiful to pursue work that has heart.
Yeah.
And it for a lot of people comes after, like, can we have our sense of safety and security in place? And that was me speaking from privilege, right?
Yeah.
And I love that guy. And he went on to be super successful, and bought his mom a house, and he was a great guy.
Yeah.
I'm not in touch with him now, but he was at the time. And I trust that he mostly is now.
Yeah.
And it's just a good reminder, like, we all come at this from different angles. I came with hopefully planting a seed with him of like, but one day I hope you love what you do, because that was a position that I got to have,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think it's so important that we share the stories and not gloss over that your story is different from many of your peers.
Yeah.
That was a story of courage and bravery to make a trek to an entirely different way of life and community. And it sounds like your parents were super courageous to do that, and that you took advantage of the opportunity given to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. The person that I am today is because of my parents. So like, yes, they had the courage to move to America with a young family. And even with very limited resources, I grew up kind of witnessing them give as much as they could, as often as they could, to anyone that they could.
Yeah, it's a total generosity of spirit. Like they were in it for others.
Yep.
Yeah, I really got that. And that's fully who you are. And now you can do it just like a grander scale, but the essence of the value was instilled.
Absolutely.
Look, there are plenty of people who had plenty of money who don't give. It's not about that.
Yeah.
That's a value.
Yes.
That's a value that they shared with you. And my parents shared with me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to share with my kids.
Yeah.
So that actually takes me to your kids, right? This is Naked Conversations. A lot of my work is about communication and how do we effectively communicate with the people in our lives to have our relationships work while also wanting to do meaningful, impactful work in the world. So what did that look like for you to bring your boys on board with Try for Charity and your husband on board for Try for Charity when in fact you already have a very full-time job?
So I think they're two different questions. So one, how do I do it? How do I make space in my life for it when there's a lot going already? Mm-hmm. And two, why was it a priority to actually engage my family and Try for Charity?
Yes, totally.
And so I'll answer them separately. So engaging my family in Try for Charity was a non-negotiable, honestly. So a big part of the reason why I'm doing this is to actually model the behavior that I want my children to see, right? When you've got a gift, and my gift is connecting people, well, hopeful that I have a lot of other gifts, but my gift is connecting people, creating space for them, throwing a terrific event,
executing on all the pieces to make it come together. Like you have a really good way of actually following through too.
Thank you. Thank you. And then also creating unique things that make everyone feel included in the experience. So that I would say is my gift. And I want to make sure my boys know that when you've got a gift that you have to find a way to bring good things to the world. And so this is my way of using my gift to make good things happen. And my hope for them is that they use their gifts to make good things happen one day, and that they grow up to be generous, kind people who find new, unique ways to contribute and like throw random acts of kindness into the world world every opportunity that they get. That's what I want them to see and do. So that's why it was important for my children to experience it.
How did you get them involved?
They attend the events. They stuffed the goodie bags. They helped design things for the event. Mostly we just talk about it. Again, I've got a 7, 4, and 1-year-old. There's only so much I can do.
But they were there. I saw them. They were a part of it. They felt like they had some part in that experience.
Absolutely. They felt really like something special was happening. And that was important to me for them to know that.
That's a big deal. I just want to say, because a lot of us think we have to separate these parts of our lives.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to shine a light on integrating. There's something to be said for including our people in our dreams, in our visions, in our values,
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that they're, 1, 4, and 7. Like they felt like, hey, there's something special happening here. And my mom has something to do with it.
Yeah.
And I helped her.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And then my husband, he's a rock. He's been in it since we started 7 years ago. So 7 years ago, he was one of 2 men that were actually at Chai for Charity, and we put them in aprons. It was him and my brother. We put them in aprons and we put them to work. They made and served chai the entire event. And more recently, Chris, my husband, serves on our advisory board, and his gift is knowing how to market. So he's in marketing, and knowing how to market an event, and also to be experimental about how you deliver something. So
Nice.
He's really kind of fearless when it comes to trying new things. And it's because of him that I feel like I can play with things to create an event, and that it doesn't have to be perfect.
I love that.
Yeah. He helps me, again, get over myself.
Okay, so let's go there for a second. And I know that there was another question, which was about how do you manage it all? We're going to get back to it.
Yeah.
But getting over ourselves or being more playful and not perfect. Like this is no joke. This is something, here I am. We're being playful. This is no joke. But I really find that myself and so many of the women, like high level, smart, capable, passionate women that I work with struggle with this so deeply. And I haven't found that men struggle with it quite as much, though I'm sure they do in their own way. But this whole idea of like perfection, having it be enough, having it all come together just so, or it's not worth it. And I just kind of wonder if that came up with you in this process of starting the nonprofit, what that looks like for you in terms of getting started and following through. Like, can you speak to this doubt and this not enoughness or perfectionism that we deal with?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of my biggest fears with Chai for Charity is that I'm not going to figure out how to do it perfectly and then deliver on it perfectly. And so I feel like I want to invest all this time to do it right this time. And I'm really struggling.
So do it right. So look, there's the language of that.
Exactly. I'm really struggling with my own perfectionism. So to answer your question, how do you manage it? Honestly, with an amazing support system. So our advisory board, Chris included, really helps me prioritize. That's really important to me when it comes to delivering an event. Is it important that the sign is perfectly centered? Or is it important that everyone leaves feeling like they could contribute? So I'm spending a lot of my time isolating the things that are actually important, the experience that I want people to have, and the experience that
the experience you want them to have versus like them having the experience that they need to have in order to participate.
Exactly. I want them to leave feeling like they had a place to contribute, that they made connections with other people, that they know more about nonprofit work that's being done locally, that they feel like they can continue to engage with the community and with the nonprofits. And that's the most important thing to me. And I think that I can accomplish those things without being perfect.
So there's like a piece of letting go of control.
Correct.
Yeah. That being said, I'm going to tell you right now, your event was dialed.
Thank you.
So to me, that's another thing that I remind myself of often. In my last year as a school counselor, before I resigned from that part of my career and moved into the coaching and writing and speaking circuit, I had a little sticky note inside my desk. And if any of my old colleagues are listening, like, I don't know, take this with a grain of salt, but it was basically like, you're good enough is way better than most, or something like that.
Yes.
And my husband really encouraged me to write it because he was like, you obsess about it being over the top great.
Yes.
When in fact, you're good enough is really pretty stellar.
Yeah.
So it's such a good reminder to our own standards versus the outsider. And of course, not everybody's always judging somewhere, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's on them. If they want to come to an event and dissect what wasn't perfect, like that's their problem. I've actually started to, again, say in my work a lot, it's so much easier to observe than to engage.
Yeah.
Fine. If you want to be an observer who's just cynical and critiquing, or you can engage and participate. And it can be harder to engage and participate. It's like Brene Brown always talks about getting in the arena. Like, don't criticize from the sidelines. Get in the damn arena. Yeah, it's messy in there. And so I just want to say that it's a good reminder for all of us that when we're starting a new initiative or launching a project or have something we want to give birth to, that while we see its shortcomings, most of the time other people don't really.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like your event had like so many beautiful details. I was quite blown away, actually. I thought I was coming to a much more homegrown function. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's like multiple tables with various signage that explains all the ways that we can participate and play along. And it was super polished and super playful.
Yeah, that means a lot to me.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. So it's a good reminder that in juggling it all, part of it is like easing up on ourselves about the level of expectation we place on the outcome.
Absolutely. And your point earlier about letting go of control is a really good one, because it's something that I continue to struggle with and am committed to engaging with, because in order for us to create the greatest Try for Charity, it's really important for me to let other people in and to share the work with me, and for me to trust that they're going to do great things as we scale nationally in the next year. So I'm working on that, and it's going to be great. But this prioritization, I think, is really going to help me manage that. Like, what is the most important 3 things that they need to deliver when they deliver a Try for Charity, or the 3 things that they need to know, or the 3 things we want people to feel?
Wait, that's a great one. 3 things we want them to know and the 3 things they want people to feel.
Yeah. I want them to feel included. I want them to feel like they connected with people. I want them to feel like it was clear to them how they could contribute to making their community amazing.
Okay, I love that. I want people to feel included, connected, and clear how they can contribute.
Yeah.
That's the model.
Yep.
So what's the vision for Try for Charity? You said national expansion. Like, what do you see
national expansion
in the dream?
So in the dream, I see international expansion, actually. So, but baby steps. So in the next year, we're going to expand nationally.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. We're going to expand nationally, or we're going to incrementally increase the fundraising goals, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to also figure out how to diversify the way that we can contribute. Yeah, I think those are my goals for now: to scale internationally and to bring in a whole lot of money and time and talent.
And time and talent. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So what I see that sets Try for Charity apart, this is what I see. I see that there is the opportunity for community collaboration as a focus, like that the experience of the people who participate, that they feel connected and included in the experience is pretty unique in my opinion. And you focus on this local impact. So even if you expand nationally or internationally, I'm imagining that you will have people in Islamabad or New York or whatever, that there people there will find organizations there that are doing good work. Is that the model?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to create a community that is engaged and knows how to contribute. Because when I got to Colorado, and actually not just when I got to Colorado, but I imagine this happens even the place that you've lived all your life, I didn't know the efforts of nonprofits locally. I didn't know how I could contribute to those efforts, given that I don't currently have a lot of time or goods. I have the other 2 categories. I have talent and money right now. And so I really struggled to figure out how I could contribute at this phase of my life toward causes that were working to help our community thrive. And it's important to me as a donor, as a private donor, to know that my contribution is going to help my community be stronger and better and have more resources.
Yeah.
So the local piece is still really important to me, because I'm trying to create these pockets of engagement.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. I feel like we haven't fully answered for the women who are listening
how we do it.
The 3 kids and the full-time job and the nonprofit. And I really like, my commitment in this show is that we ignite people's impact.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've really learned through my work and my time on the planet is, like, personally and professionally, is that each of us has way more capacity than we think we have. That's number 1.
Yeah.
And not everybody's capacity is the same. I think a lot of that has to do with early childhood trauma and like what we're carrying that we're still trying to let go of that gets in our way.
Absolutely.
So, but I do think we're all capable of more than we think we are.
Yes.
And that our capabilities vary.
Yeah.
I want whoever's listening, this is not about like comparing ourselves. Like, Natasha is so human and so real and totally struggles with like, oh my gosh, am I going to drop the ball? Right?
Yes. Yes. All the time. All the time.
So what do you do that makes it livable? You know, like it seems that you still have a nice relationship with your husband and a nice relationship with your parents, and your kids, you know, are good little humans. Like what are you doing that when you are working, you know, a full work week outside of the home,
Yeah.
and parenting and creating this nonprofit. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So there was this cartoon or something that went around years ago, and I can't remember all of the details, but what I do vividly remember is this idea of big rocks. So I'll send it to you later, Sage, but essentially it's like a philosophy professor went to the front of the classroom in a jar, put in a bunch of rocks and asked the students if the jar was full, and they all said unanimously yes. And then he kind of poured pebbles in.
Oh, yeah.
Asked them again, is the jar full? Yes, it's full. And then he added sand and then he added water. And so the point that he or she was trying to make is that it's really easy to get distracted with all of the little things that kind of poke at us during the daytime, like the dishes or the laundry or that email you didn't send or, and it takes some discipline to focus on the big rocks. And so I actually have gone back to that kind of metaphor a lot over the years. And so the big rocks are the things that matter. I want my children to feel loved. I want my husband to feel loved. I want to be a good friend. I want to be a good daughter and a good sister and good other things as well. I want to create something really lasting and good for the world. And that's Chai for Charity. I want to create a space for women to thrive at Google. That's Women at Google. I want to make leaders at Google feel like they have the resources they need. That's my day job. So I think that when I can kind of anchor on my big rocks, it makes it easier for me to let go of all of the perfectionism that I was talking about before and all of the things that distract us from creating the feelings we want in other people. And what I mean by that is what I said earlier. I want my children to feel loved. So sometimes during dinner time, if they are messing around as children will, I'll remind myself
no, never.
not to get frustrated with the fact that my 1-year-old wants to pour water onto his dinner every single night because he likes watching water pour, right? And instead, just allow him to be playful because I want him to feel loved. And I don't want dinner time to turn into this struggle every single night. So I've kind of got these rocks in my head. Oh, that sounds terrible. I've got these priorities.
No, I love that, to anchor to the things that matter the most.
Yeah. And that's actually how I'm doing it right now. I don't know if it completely answers your question. Tactically, I ask for help. So I've got so many generous people in my life who help. So the advisory board for Chai for Charity takes really significant load of the work of making it come to life. My husband helps a lot with all kinds of things that help make life possible.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a really long time to, again, get over myself and the pride that I feel in doing things myself and asking for help when I really need it. And when I know it's not a gift of mine. Social media marketing, for instance, is not a gift of mine. I've asked for help from a friend and an advisory board member who does all the social media marketing for Chai for Charity. And
right. So again, it kind of goes full circle back to what we were talking about earlier, the inner and outer game in order to do it all, right? It's
absolutely.
Like the internal piece is, okay, what matters to me most? Am I going to teach my child about manners and behaving at the table right now? Or am I going to create like our dinner time as a precious, sacred family love time?
Yes.
And that's my priority. Okay, got it. That's the internal dialogue. I love that. That was a really beautiful, concrete example that I'm going to take with me, by the way.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're largely waiting for an invitation to do so.
Yes. I learned that at the conference that we went to, and the workshops that we went to it was CEO. And during that workshop, the leader of the executive director, CEO.
I'll put a link to CEO in the show notes so people can check it out, because it's a very cool women-led initiative to fund women businesses. Yeah.
And that's where it came out. Like, everyone actually wants to give, and most people don't ask for the help. And so the activity was everyone went around and offered a thing and asked for a thing. And it was really hard. Actually.
Really? That's awesome. I wasn't at that workshop breakout. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was hard. It's hard for people to ask for things. Women in particular, it turns out.
Women in particular have a hard time asking for things. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I don't know why it is universally. I know for me, it's that I feel like I can do it all. Mm-hmm. I feel completely capable. I feel like I've been able to do it all forever. And what I don't take into account, which I'm trying to give myself grace for, is that my life has changed. So like it's, 10 years ago, I could do it all because I only had to take care of myself.
Right. It's totally different.
Yeah. And I had a lot more agency. And I don't know if agency is actually the right word. You
still have a lot of agency. You had more capacity because you had more space and time.
Exactly. And today my space and time is defined by myself and by other people, right? So bedtime is at 7:00, and at 7:00, everyone melts down. So they're kind of these like triggers in my day that prevent me from having the agency that I wanted before.
Yeah.
That I had before. Yes.
Right. So yeah, that's good. I love that you said I can't speak for everybody, because that's interesting, because I think mine is that I think I should be able to do it all. I'm not sure if I've ever thought that I can do it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that my value is contingent upon me doing it all myself, I think is sort of my conditioning.
Yeah.
So and I've gotten a lot better about that as well.
Good. And if we're being totally honest, part of it is comparing ourselves to other people. You know, the moms and the women, and like my own mother feels like superwoman. I have no idea how she did it all. And I think to myself, well, if she could do it, I should be able to do it.
Right. Totally.
And then there are your friends, and there are your sisters and your sister-in-laws, and the comparison game. I wish I could say that I didn't.
That I stepped out of that game.
Yeah. But
that's a constant one for me, to keep pulling myself out of that, pulling myself out of that.
Their reality is different from your reality. And it's hard to remember that.
And we all have different goals, desires, values, and capacities.
Correct.
You know, like not everybody wants to start a nonprofit while working full time. That's okay.
Yes.
What I do know is that most of us want to be doing something a bit more different than we are. Like most women, they want to be creating something, sharing something, speaking up more, leaning in more, having deep, intimate, passionate relationships better. You know, there is some place that we want to expand or grow. And I guess if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not going to start a nonprofit, like I just invite you to consider, okay, but what's your edge?
Yeah.
What needs to be ignited inside of you?
Yeah.
Because I do think it's different. And when we compare, we shut ourselves down. It's fine if it's not starting a nonprofit, but maybe it's completing a painting that you had tucked away, or the book that you'd started to write, or submitting a piece of writing to a magazine, or asking your partner for the time away together that you've been yearning for, or you know, sitting with your boss for some new ideas and sharing. There's some edge that we could all for ourselves explore.
Absolutely. Because we want to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be.
Totally. Okay. So what would you say to the women who are listening who have a dream that they've sort of maybe put on pause, or decided now wasn't the time, or that they were too scared to step into it? What advice would you give them if they have their own version of Chai for Charity type of thing that they want to embark upon?
What I would say actually is be patient with yourself. I have been trying to relaunch Chai for Charity for 7 years, and the time will come. The space will come. The energy will come. You don't have to push it, I guess is what I would say. And when it comes, it'll be beautiful. But be patient with yourself.
I love that. All right, Natasha, I will make sure people know how to find out all about Chai for Charity on the website of the show notes. Thank you so much for having this conversation and for sharing the whole journey with our listeners. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Sage.
Thank you so much for listening to Naked Conversations. Yay! It really means the world to me every time you show up. And if you want to know more about how to work with me personally and my coaching, you can check that out over at sagebhobbs.com. You can also get some great free resources over there about how to make powerful requests, and many blog posts full of resources for living a naked life, as well as grab a copy of my book, Naked Communication: Courageously Create the Relationships You Really Want. Thanks again. See you next time.